Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones were just elected to the Hall of Fame yesterday in a vote that I personally thought showed some progress in how the writers view player totals. Chase Utley, Felix Hernandez, and Dustin Pedroia all showed meaningful progress in their respective journeys as well. But there was one hypocritical, contrasting decision I just had to talk about, because it makes zero sense, and further shows the downright hypocrisy of the voting body of baseball's Writers Association. This is the decision to elect the previously aforementioned Jones and Beltran, but not Manny Ramirez, who fell off the ballot in his 10th year. Listen, you could honestly throw in Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, or a host of other talented players who fell off the ballot due to steroids, but I'm going to run with Manny today because he actually was on this ballot, and had the same level, relatively speaking, of negative attention to both of these guys. While looking at their numbers, I think it's pretty clear who the most obvious Hall of Famer is, even if, in my opinion, all would cross the threshold in a vacuum. Ramirez crushed 555 home runs with a 312, 411, 485 slash line, coming out to a career OPS of 996. That number and the homers are both top 15 totals all time, and frankly, we could be here all day with additional accolades. He was a 12-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champion, and 9-time Silver Slugger winner. All things that matter to voters. In fact, the only cogent argument against him comes down to two things. One, that he tested positive for steroids at the end of his career and was also listed in the infamous Mitchell Report. And two, he had some notable run-ins with the media, some domestic violence allegations, and just overall was considered an unpleasant person to be around at times despite a childlike quirkiness. Now, I want to contrast this body of work with Jones and Beltran. Both hit over 400 career home runs, but not anywhere close to 555. Neither had an OPS over 840 for their career, or an OPS plus over 120. And, just like Manny, neither one of them ever won an MVP, and made just 2 All-Star games more combined than Manny did by himself. Obviously, both of them were much better fielding-wise, particularly Jones, who will go down as one of the best center fielders in baseball history, but I'm not sure if that's enough to make up for the wide gap in offense. Even value-wise, Ramirez trails Beltran by just 0.7 BWAR, and sits comfortably about 7 ahead of Andrew. Again though, performance-wise, I believe all of these guys deserve to be in. It's the character clause that is, in my opinion, massively hypocritical in how it's applied. Jones has had a complicated path after his playing career ended. Feel free to look more into that yourself, but needless to say, there were some pretty controversial things he was involved in, at least on the same level as Manny. And Beltran, obviously, was involved in one of the most ornate cheating scandals in MLB history that's been proven, with a widespread theory stating that he was borderline the ringleader of the operation. At the very least, he's a proven cheater, and at the worst, was largely responsible. Either way, I do think all three of these guys should be in. After you let in David Ortiz, Ivan Rodriguez, and a host of other players who were literally listed in the Mitchell Report or generally accepted to have done steroids, you kind of lose the right for this caveat to be applied, in my opinion. How can you have Ortiz and not Alex Rodriguez or Barry Bonds? Or, in this year's case, Ramirez? But now, if you're going to adopt two players that I think by most measures are at least comparable to those guys you're keeping out in terms of off-the-field stuff and controversies, I just don't think that makes any sense. How can you further exclude the most dominant players from that era in baseball history while giving passes to some others? I just want consistency, and that's something I think Hall of Fame voters have struggled with for a long time.
Alright everybody, if you made it this far, I appreciate you watching, and if you did, consider checking out any of these other videos on your screen right now for other content just like this. Also, if you ever see anything you'd like to see me detail in the video, feel free to reach out to my email, basebeatpoet@gmail.com, and if I end up using your idea, I'll give you a shout out. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day.